In a luxurious resort perched on the edge of a tropical island, life unfolded like a dream for most visitors. The air smelled of salt water and blooming hibiscus flowers, while the sun painted golden hues across the pristine beaches. This was a place where people came to escape reality, where every meal was served with elegance, every room offered breathtaking views, and every staff member wore a smile that seemed almost too perfect. Among these staff members was Maya, a young waitress, whose name meant illusion in her native language, but whose presence was anything but fleeting. She moved gracefully between tables, balancing trays laden with gourmet dishes, always ready with a kind word or an encouraging nod for weary travelers. Maya's life outside the resort was far less glamorous. Born into a modest family in a small, coastal town, she had grown up watching her parents struggle to make ends meet. Her father worked long hours as a fisherman, battling unpredictable tides and dwindling catches, while her mother stitched clothes late into the night to pay for. Maya's education, despite their hardships, they instilled in her values of hard work, humility, and resilience. Now, at 24 years old, Maya juggled two jobs, one at the resort during the day and another at a local cafe in the evenings. It wasn't easy, but she took pride in sending money home each month to help her younger siblings attend school. To her, this job wasn't just about serving food, it was about building a better future. On the other side of the spectrum sat Eleanor Whitmore, a woman whose wealth allowed her to float effortlessly through life. Dressed impeccably in designer clothing, she exuded an aura of authority that demanded attention. At 52, Eleanor had built a reputation as a shrewd businesswoman, known for her sharp mind and even sharper tongue. Yet, beneath her polished exterior lay a deep sense of entitlement, a belief that her status afforded her special treatment wherever she went. For Eleanor, vacations weren't about relaxation. They were opportunities to flaunt her success and remind others of their inferiority. And so, when she arrived at the resort restaurant that afternoon, she carried with her not only her expensive handbag, but also an unspoken expectation that everyone around her would cater to her whims. The restaurant buzzed with activity as servers darted between tables, ensuring glasses remained full and plates stayed clean. Maya approached Eleanor's table cautiously, aware of the woman's piercing gaze following her every move. "Good afternoon, ma'am," Maya greeted politely, placing a menu before her. Eleanor barely glanced at it, instead scrutinizing Maya from head to toe. "Is this how you greet your guests?" she asked coldly, her voice cutting through the ambient chatter like a knife. Maya blinked, momentarily taken aback but quickly recovered. "I apologize if I missed anything. How may I assist you today?" Eleanor continued to pick apart every detail of the dining experience. The lighting was too dim, she claimed, making it impossible to read the menu properly. The water, glass, she insisted, had a smudge near the rim, even though Maya had polished it herself moments earlier. Each complaint grew louder and more pointed, drawing curious stares from nearby diners. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure whether to intervene or simply pretend nothing was happening. Others exchanged knowing looks, silently acknowledging the familiar pattern of someone wielding privilege as a weapon. Despite the mounting tension, Maya maintained her composure. Years of working in hospitality had taught her to remain calm under pressure. She refilled Eleanor's water without hesitation, replaced her napkin after a minor spill, and patiently explained the chef's specials when requested. But inside, Maya felt a growing knot of frustration. She knew this behavior wasn't uncommon among certain types of customers, those who believed their wealth gave them license to treat others poorly. Still, there was something particularly venomous about Eleanor's tone, a cruelty that seemed calculated to humiliate rather than merely criticize. As the minutes ticked by, Eleanor's criticisms became increasingly personal. "Do you even know what you're doing?" she snapped, leaning forward with narrowed eyes. "You seem completely out of your depth." Maya forced a smile, reminding herself that this wasn't about her. It was about Eleanor's need to assert dominance. Yet no amount of self-talk could fully shield her from the sting of such remarks. Every insult landed like a pebble tossed into still water, creating ripples that threatened to disrupt her carefully constructed facade of professionalism. Little did Maya know, however, that this encounter was only beginning, and soon she would be faced with a choice that would change everything. The tension in the restaurant thickened as Eleanor's criticisms escalated. Her voice grew louder, slicing through the gentle hum of conversation and clinking silverware. Patrons who had initially tried to ignore her complaints now found themselves glancing over curiously, their meals momentarily forgotten. Maya stood frozen for a brief second, her hands gripping the edge of the tray she held. She could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on her, some sympathetic, others judgmental, but none of it mattered compared to the storm brewing within her own heart. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms with an air of smug satisfaction. "I suppose I shouldn't expect much," she said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "After all, service like this is probably the best you're capable of." The words hit Maya like a slap across the face, but she didn't let them show. Instead, she took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus on the task at hand. "Is there anything else I can get for you, ma'am?" she asked softly, her tone measured and calm despite the turmoil inside her. But Eleanor wasn't done yet. She picked up her fork and tapped it against her plate impatiently. "Honestly, I don't understand why they hire people like you here," she continued, her gaze sweeping dismissively over Maya's uniform. "You clearly have no idea how to handle high-end clientele. Perhaps you'd be better suited working somewhere less refined." A few gasps rippled through the crowd around them, but Eleanor either didn't notice or didn't care. To her, this was just another opportunity to assert her superiority, a chance to remind everyone, including Maya, of the vast chasm between their worlds. Maya's fingers tightened around the tray until her knuckles turned white. She wanted to say something, to defend herself, to stand up for the countless hours she spent perfecting her craft. But years of training told her to stay silent. This wasn't the first time someone had insulted her because of her background, nor would it likely be the last. Still, something about Eleanor's cruelty felt different this time. It wasn't just the cutting remarks. It was the way she delivered them with such calculated precision, as if every word were designed to wound. Then came the moment that shattered whatever restraint Maya had left. As she reached out to adjust Eleanor's napkin, a gesture meant purely to diffuse the situation, Eleanor suddenly lashed out. With startling speed, she slapped her hand hard against the tray Maya was holding, sending plates rattling and utensils clattering onto the floor. The noise was deafening, silencing every conversation in the room. For a split second, nobody moved, nobody spoke. All eyes were fixed on the scene unfolding before them. Eleanor sitting haughtily in her chair, her manicured nails gleaming under the chandelier lights, and Maya standing frozen, her chest rising and falling with each labored breath. Tears welled up in Maya's eyes, not from physical pain, though her wrist throbbed where Eleanor's blow had struck, but from sheer disbelief. How could someone treat another human being this way? What gave Eleanor the right to act as though she was untouchable, invincible even? Memories flooded back to Maya, memories of similar moments when strangers had judged her based on her skin, color, her accent, or the modest clothes she wore. Each memory stung, but none quite like this one. This wasn't just prejudice. It was cruelty disguised as entitlement. For a fleeting instant, Maya considered walking away. She imagined setting down the tray, apologizing once more for inconveniencing Eleanor, and disappearing into the kitchen where she could cry in private. But then something inside her shifted, a spark of defiance ignited by years of quiet endurance. No, she thought fiercely. Not today. Today she wouldn't let Eleanor win. Today she would fight back, not with anger, but with dignity, without hesitation. Maya placed the tray gently on a nearby table and turned to face Eleanor squarely. Every muscle in her body tensed as she locked eyes with the older woman, refusing to look away. "No one deserves to be treated like trash," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the storm raging within her. Then, without giving herself time to second guess, Maya raised her hand and delivered a single resounding slap across Eleanor's cheek. The sound echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot, shocking everyone, including Maya herself. Time seemed to freeze as Eleanor sat motionless, her perfectly coiffed hair slightly askew, her jaw hanging open in disbelief. Around them, patrons exchanged wide-eyed looks, unsure whether to applaud or recoil. Some whispered nervously behind their menus while others openly stared, too stunned to react. Even the staff members paused mid-step, trays hovering uncertainly in their hands. "You..." Eleanor finally managed to choke out, her voice trembling with outrage. "Do you have any idea who I am? Do you know what I'm capable of?" She rose unsteadily to her feet, pointing an accusatory finger at Maya. But instead of shrinking back, Maya stood tall, meeting Eleanor's glare with unwavering resolve. "Yes," Maya replied, her voice ringing clear and strong. "I know exactly who you are, a bully who thinks money gives her the right to hurt others. But guess what? Money doesn't make you powerful. Respect does, and you haven't earned mine." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. For the first time in her life, Maya felt truly free. Free from fear, free from shame, free from the burden of letting others dictate her worth. As the reality of what had just transpired began to sink in, whispers erupted throughout the restaurant. Some guests nodded approvingly, murmuring about how brave Maya had been. Others frowned, muttering disapprovingly about professionalism and decorum. But none of it mattered to Maya anymore. She had drawn a line in the sand and dared Eleanor Whitmore to cross it. The aftermath of Maya's bold action rippled through the restaurant like a tidal wave. Patrons who had been quietly observing the confrontation began to stir, their reactions ranging from admiration to disbelief. A middle-aged couple sitting near Eleanor's table exchanged glances before breaking into quiet applause, their hands clapping softly but deliberately. "Good for her," the woman whispered, shaking her head as she watched Eleanor fume. Others, however, weren't so supportive. A businessman in an expensive suit leaned over to his companion and muttered, "That waitress just ruined her career. You can't hit a guest, no matter what they do." Eleanor, still standing with one hand pressed against her reddened cheek, looked around the room as if searching for allies. But instead of finding sympathy, she encountered a sea of blank stares and awkward silences. Her confidence faltered for the first time that day. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again, unsure of how to salvage the situation. For someone accustomed to commanding attention and respect, this sudden loss of control was unbearable. Finally, she managed to sputter, "This is outrageous. I demand to see the manager immediately." Maya stood rooted to the spot, her heart pounding in her chest. Part of her wanted to run, to escape the weight of everyone's judgment, but another part refused to back down. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every person who had ever been humiliated or mistreated because of their race, class, or position. As she waited for the manager to arrive, she replayed the moment in her mind, the sharp crack of her palm against Eleanor's cheek, the stunned silence that followed, and the realization that she had finally taken a stand. It felt surreal yet undeniably right. Within minutes, the restaurant manager appeared, his face pale with concern. Mr. Patel, a kind-hearted man in his late 50s, was known for his fairness and compassion toward both guests and staff. He approached Eleanor cautiously, bowing slightly as he addressed her. "Madam Whitmore, I'm terribly sorry for any inconvenience you've experienced today. Could we please step into my office to discuss this matter privately?" His voice was calm but firm, a subtle reminder that public outbursts were not tolerated, even from high-profile guests. Eleanor hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave the stage she had created. But after a pointed glare from Mr. Patel, she relented, stalking off toward the office with all the indignation of a queen forced to retreat. Maya followed moments later, her steps steady despite the knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. She knew what awaited her in that office, a grueling interrogation, potential consequences, and perhaps even the end of her job at the resort. Yet strangely enough, she felt no regret. If anything, she felt a sense of liberation, as though shedding years of pent-up frustration in a single act of defiance. Inside the office, the atmosphere was tense. Eleanor sat rigidly on a leather chair, her posture radiating fury. Mr. Patel took his seat behind the desk, gesturing for Maya to sit across from him. The three formed an uneasy triangle, each person carrying their own emotions into the conversation. Mr. Patel cleared his throat before speaking. "I understand there has been an incident involving both of you," he began diplomatically. "Could someone please explain what happened?" Eleanor wasted no time launching into her version of events. This girl," she spat, pointing, an accusing finger at Maya, "assaulted me in front of everyone. She slapped me for absolutely no reason." Her voice rose dramatically, emphasizing her outrage. "I simply asked for proper service, and instead, I was subjected to insolence and violence. I expect immediate action to be taken against her." Mr. Patel listened patiently, nodding occasionally to acknowledge her perspective. When she finished, he turned to Maya, his expression softening slightly. "Maya, would you care to share your side of the story?" he asked gently. Taking a deep breath, Maya recounted the events leading up to the altercation. She described Eleanor's relentless criticism, her derogatory comments, and the physical blow that had sent dishes crashing to the floor. "I tried to remain professional throughout," Maya explained, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "But when she hit me and continued to insult me, I realized I couldn't stay silent anymore. I didn't mean to escalate things, but I also couldn't let her treat me, or anyone else, like I'm worthless." As Maya spoke, Mr. Patel's expression grew thoughtful. He glanced between the two women, weighing their words carefully. While Eleanor's wealth and influence were undeniable, Maya's dignity and composure struck a chord within him. After a long pause, he addressed Eleanor directly. "Madam Whitmore, while I understand your frustration, I must emphasize that our staff deserves to be treated with basic human decency. Physical aggression and verbal abuse are unacceptable behaviors in this establishment." Eleanor bristled at his words, her face flushing with anger. "Are you implying that I deserve to be attacked? That I somehow provoked this?" she demanded, her tone dripping with disbelief. "This is absurd. You're supposed to protect your guests, not side with employees who assault them." Mr. Patel held up a hand, signaling for calm. "I am not excusing violence under any circumstances," he clarified. "However, context matters, based on Maya's account and the reports from other staff members present. It appears that your behavior played a significant role in escalating the situation." He paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "Given the severity of this incident, I will need some time to review everything thoroughly. In the meantime, I suggest we resolve this matter discreetly, without causing further disruption to the resort's operations." Eleanor scoffed, clearly dissatisfied with his response. "Discreetly? Are you serious? This isn't something that can be swept under the rug." She crossed her arms defiantly, her eyes blazing with defiance. "If you don't take appropriate action, I assure you, I will make sure the entire world knows how poorly I was treated here." Her threat hung heavy in the air, but Mr. Patel remained unfazed. "Very well, Madam Whitmore," he replied evenly. "We will handle this appropriately. Thank you for bringing this to my attention." Turning to Maya, he added, "Maya, please return to your duties for now. We'll discuss next steps once I've reviewed the details fully." As Maya left the office, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change forever. Whether for better or worse, she wasn't sure. But one thing was certain. She had stood up for herself, and nothing could take that away from her. As Maya stepped out of the manager's office, the weight of what had just transpired began to settle over her. The restaurant buzzed with hushed conversations and stolen glances, but she walked straight ahead, her head held high. Her co-workers watched her with a mix of admiration and concern. Some gave her encouraging nods, while others avoided her gaze altogether, unsure of how to react. For a moment, Maya felt isolated, caught between two worlds: the staff who depended on her resilience, and the management who now had to decide her fate. Back in the kitchen, the atmosphere was tense. News of the altercation had spread like wildfire among the employees, and everyone seemed to have an opinion. Maria, a fellow waitress who often worked alongside Maya, approached her cautiously. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, her dark eyes filled with worry. Maya forced a small smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm fine," she replied, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "It's just, I don't know what's going to happen next." Maria placed a comforting hand on Maya's shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said firmly. "No one should have to put up with that kind of treatment, not from anyone." Her words brought a flicker of warmth to Maya's heart, but they couldn't erase the uncertainty looming over her future. What if Eleanor followed through on her threat? What if the resort decided to side with their wealthy guest instead of protecting their employee? Meanwhile, Eleanor sat fuming in the lounge area, nursing a glass of expensive champagne. To anyone watching, she appeared composed, but inside she seethed with indignation. How dare that waitress humiliate her in front of so many people? How dare Mr. Patel dismiss her complaints so casually? In her mind, this wasn't just about a slap, it was about principle. It was about asserting her dominance, reminding everyone of her status, and ensuring that no one ever dared to challenge her again. Eleanor pulled out her phone and opened her social media app. With deft fingers, she typed out a scathing post, painting herself as the victim of an unprovoked attack. "Just experienced the most appalling behavior at resort name," she wrote. "A rude and unprofessional waitress assaulted me after I politely requested better service. Absolutely unacceptable. Will be filing a formal complaint and advising my followers to reconsider staying here." She attached a photo of herself posing dramatically by the resort's infinity pool, her flawless makeup masking the red mark on her cheek. Within minutes, the post went viral, sparking outrage among her thousands of followers. Comments poured in almost instantly. "Disgusting," one person wrote. "How dare they treat you like that?" Another chimed in. "This is why we need stricter standards for hospitality workers." Others called for boycotts of the resort, vowing never to visit such an establishment. The backlash was swift and overwhelming, threatening not only Maya's job but also the resort's reputation. By evening, the story had reached local news outlets. Reporters swarmed the property, eager to capture footage of the luxurious resort, embroiled in controversy. Guests checked their phones nervously during meals, scrolling through headlines that painted the incident in increasingly dramatic terms. Some defended Eleanor, praising her for speaking out against poor service, while others criticized the resort for failing to protect its patrons. Amidst the chaos, few seemed concerned with hearing Maya's perspective. Inside the staff quarters, rumors swirled about potential layoffs or disciplinary actions. Many feared that management would sacrifice Maya to appease Eleanor and mitigate the damage to the resort's image. But Maya refused to let fear consume her. Instead, she focused on doing her job with the same grace and determination she always had. If this was her last day at the resort, she told herself, she would leave with her integrity intact. The turning point came when security footage of the altercation surfaced online. Someone, no one knew exactly who, had recorded the entire interaction between Maya and Eleanor. The video quickly gained traction, showing Eleanor's aggressive behavior and Maya's restrained response. Viewers saw the exact moment Eleanor slapped the tray, heard her cutting remarks, and witnessed Maya's calm demeanor before delivering the retaliatory slap. Public opinion began to shift dramatically. Social media erupted once again, but this time, the narrative favored Maya. "This isn't assault, it's self-defense," one commenter argued. "That woman deserved every bit of it after treating someone so horribly." Another added, "Maya stood up for herself and countless others who face abuse because of their jobs. She's a hero." Even some of Eleanor's followers turned against her, accusing her of exaggerating the situation to garner sympathy. As support for Maya grew, so did pressure on the resort to address the issue publicly. Mr. Patel found himself caught in the crossfire, balancing the demands of influential guests like Eleanor against the growing outcry from the public. He called an emergency meeting with his senior staff to discuss their next steps. "We cannot ignore this," he admitted gravely. The world is watching, and whatever decision we make will define us moving forward. One of the supervisors suggested firing Maya immediately to placate Eleanor and prevent further negative publicity. It's unfortunate, yes, he said, but sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good of the business. However, another colleague disagreed vehemently. If we fire Maya, we're sending a message that abusive behavior is acceptable as long as it comes from someone with money. Is that really the kind of establishment we want to be? The debate raged late into the night, but ultimately, Mr. Patel made his decision. Early the following morning, he issued a statement addressing the incident. After reviewing all available evidence, including security footage and witness testimonies, we believe that both parties contributed to the escalation of this unfortunate event, he wrote. While physical altercations are never condoned, we recognize that our staff deserve to work in an environment free from harassment and abuse. Effective immediately, Mrs. Whitmore's membership privileges at our resort have been revoked due to her unacceptable conduct. The announcement sent shockwaves through the community. Supporters of Maya celebrated the decision, praising the resort for taking a stand against elitism and mistreatment. Meanwhile, Eleanor's fury reached new heights. She fired off angry emails to the resort's corporate headquarters, threatening legal action and vowing to tarnish their reputation. Yet despite her bluster, it became clear that the tide had turned against her. For Maya, the outcome was bittersweet. While she kept her job, she knew life at the resort would never be the same. Some guests treated her with newfound respect, while others eyed her warily, unsure of how to reconcile her boldness with their expectations of servility. Still, she carried herself with quiet pride, knowing she had sparked a conversation that extended far beyond the confines of the restaurant. In the days that followed, messages of encouragement poured in from strangers around the world. People shared their own stories of workplace mistreatment and thanked Maya for inspiring them to speak up. Though the road ahead remained uncertain, Maya realized something profound. Standing up for herself hadn't just changed her life, it had ignited a movement. The days following the incident at the resort were a whirlwind of emotions for Maya. The public support she received was overwhelming, yet it came with its own set of challenges. Messages flooded her social media accounts, some praising her courage, others offering advice or simply sharing words of encouragement. Strangers sent her heartfelt notes recounting their own experiences of standing up to bullies in workplaces or facing discrimination because of their race, gender, or socioeconomic status. Maya read each message carefully, feeling both humbled and inspired by the stories of resilience that mirrored her own. But not everyone celebrated her actions. Some critics accused her of overreacting, arguing that retaliation even in self-defense was unprofessional. She should have walked away, one commenter wrote on a news article about the incident. Violence is never the answer. Others dismissed her entirely, claiming that Eleanor's wealth gave her the right to demand exceptional service. These comments stung, but Maya refused to let them define her. She reminded herself daily that she hadn't acted out of anger. She had acted out of necessity, to reclaim her dignity and protect her sense of self-worth. At work, the atmosphere remained tense. While many guests applauded Maya's bravery, some treated her differently, as if her defiance made her unpredictable or dangerous. A few even requested different servers when they saw her approaching their tables. It hurt, but Maya understood. People often fear what they don't understand, and her boldness challenged the traditional dynamic between staff and patrons. Instead of letting it discourage her, she focused on providing impeccable service to those who still welcomed her presence, proving through her actions that professionalism and strength could coexist. Eleanor, meanwhile, struggled to regain control of the narrative. Her attempts to rally her followers against the resort fell flat as more people sided with Maya. Outraged by the backlash, Eleanor launched into a tirade during an interview with a local news station. "This isn't about race or class, it's about basic human decency," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with frustration. "I paid good money to stay at this resort, and instead, I was attacked by someone who clearly doesn't respect authority." Her words only deepened the divide. Viewers pointed out the hypocrisy in her statement, highlighting how Eleanor's behavior contradicted her claims of seeking decency. Clips of her condescending remarks and aggressive actions circulated online alongside memes mocking her entitled attitude. One particularly viral post featured a split-screen image. On one side, Eleanor glaring imperiously at Maya. On the other, Maya calmly standing her ground. The caption read, "When privilege meets resilience." Despite the ridicule, Eleanor refused to back down. She hired a high-profile lawyer to file a lawsuit against the resort, accusing them of negligence and defamation. Her legal team argued that revoking her membership privileges constituted discrimination based on her status as a wealthy guest. They demanded compensation for emotional distress and insisted that Maya be fired immediately. The threat of litigation cast a shadow over the resort, forcing management to brace for a prolonged battle. Mr. Patel, however, remained steadfast. He knew the stakes were high, but he also recognized the importance of setting a precedent. During a press conference, he addressed the lawsuit directly. "We stand by our decision," he declared, his voice steady despite the pressure. "Mrs. Whitmore's behavior violated our code of conduct, which prioritizes mutual respect among all individuals within our establishment. We will defend ourselves vigorously in court and continue advocating for a workplace culture rooted in fairness and equity." His words resonated with employees and supporters alike. Staff members gathered outside his office after the press conference, applauding his leadership and expressing gratitude for his unwavering support. Maria hugged Maya tightly, tears streaming down her face. "You've given us hope," she whispered. "Hope that we can speak up without losing everything." As the legal proceedings unfolded, the case garnered national attention. Talk shows debated whether Maya's slap constituted justified retaliation or crossed a line. Journalists interviewed experts on workplace ethics, racial dynamics, and customer service standards. The story became a catalyst for broader discussions about power imbalances, systemic inequality, and the treatment of marginalized communities in professional settings. For Maya, the spotlight was both exhilarating and exhausting. Reporters hounded her for interviews, photographers camped outside her modest apartment, and strangers stopped her on the street to thank her or ask for selfies. At first, she declined most requests, wanting to focus on her work and family. But eventually she agreed to sit down with a journalist from a prominent magazine. Sitting in a quiet cafe overlooking the ocean, she spoke candidly about her life before and after the incident. "I didn't wake up that morning expecting to change anything," Maya admitted, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "I just wanted to do my job and take care of my family. But when someone treats you like you're invisible, as if your feelings don't matter, you reach a breaking point. For me, that moment came when I realized I couldn't keep swallowing my pride for the sake of a paycheck." Her honesty struck a chord with readers who praised her vulnerability and authenticity. The article went viral, further amplifying her message of empowerment and justice. Maya began receiving invitations to speak at conferences and community events, where she shared her story and encouraged others to stand up for themselves. Each speech reinforced her belief that collective action could dismantle systems of oppression. Back at the resort, the ripple effects of the incident continued to reshape the workplace culture. Employees felt emboldened to report instances of mistreatment without fear of retaliation. Management implemented new training programs focused on conflict resolution, diversity awareness, and mental health support for staff. Guests noticed the shift too, commenting on the improved atmosphere and renewed sense of camaraderie among employees. One evening, as Maya prepared to leave after a long shift, Mr. Patel approached her with a proud smile. "You've done something remarkable, Maya," he said sincerely. "Not just for yourself, but for everyone here. You've reminded us all that respect isn't negotiable. It's non-negotiable." Maya nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thank you for believing in me," she replied softly. As she walked home under the starlit sky, she reflected on how far she'd come. From enduring insults to inspiring change, her journey had been anything but easy. Yet every step had brought her closer to understanding her own power and the strength found in standing together. The months that followed the incident brought profound changes not only to Maya's life, but also to the broader community surrounding the resort. The lawsuit filed by Eleanor dragged on in court, becoming a landmark case that drew attention from legal experts, activists, and media outlets around the world. Lawyers debated whether Maya's actions constituted self-defense or workplace misconduct, while commentators analyzed the implications of privilege versus accountability. For Maya, the courtroom drama was exhausting, yet she remained resolute. She attended every hearing dressed in her finest clothes, determined to face whatever came next with dignity. During one pivotal moment in the trial, the judge reviewed the security footage of the altercation. As the video played on a large screen, showing Eleanor's aggressive behavior and Maya's restrained response, the courtroom fell silent. Even Eleanor seemed uncomfortable, shifting uneasily in her seat as murmurs of disapproval rippled through the audience. When the clip ended, the judge addressed both parties. "It is clear from this evidence," he said firmly, "that there was provocation on both sides. However, physical retaliation, regardless of intent, is not permissible under the law." In the end, the court ruled in favor of the resort. While Maya's slap was deemed inappropriate, Eleanor's conduct was found to have significantly contributed to the escalation of events. The judge ordered Eleanor to issue a formal apology to Maya, not just for the sake of closure, but as a gesture of acknowledgement for her role in the conflict. Though reluctant, Eleanor complied, reading a terse statement outside the courthouse. "I regret any distress my actions may have caused." Her tone lacked sincerity, but the public saw it as a symbolic victory nonetheless. For Maya, the outcome was bittersweet. On one hand, she felt vindicated. On the other, she recognized that the battle wasn't truly over. Discrimination and mistreatment were deeply ingrained issues that couldn't be resolved overnight. Still, she took solace in knowing that her stand had sparked meaningful conversations about equality, respect, and justice. People began referring to her as a symbol of resilience, a woman who dared to challenge the status quo despite overwhelming odds. As time passed, Maya embraced her newfound role as an advocate for change. Invitations poured in from organizations eager to hear her speak about overcoming adversity and fostering inclusivity. She traveled across cities, sharing her story at schools, corporate offices, and community centers. Her speeches always began with the same simple message: no one deserves to be treated like they are invisible. Every person has value, and every voice matters. Her talks resonated deeply with audiences, especially young people striving to find their footing in a world often stacked against them. One teenage girl approached Maya after a presentation, tears streaming down her face. "You've given me hope," she said softly. "I've been bullied at school because of my skin color, but hearing your story makes me believe I can fight back without losing myself." Moments like these reminded Maya why she continued speaking out, to inspire others to rise above fear and embrace their inner strength. At the resort, Maya's influence transformed the workplace culture. Employees no longer hesitated to report instances of harassment or unfair treatment, confident that management would take their concerns seriously. Training sessions became more than mere formalities. They evolved into opportunities for open dialogue, where staff members could share their experiences and learn from one another. Guests noticed the shift too, commenting on the warmth and professionalism exuded by the team. Many expressed admiration for how the resort handled the controversy, praising its commitment to fairness and integrity. Maya's relationship with Mr. Patel grew stronger as well. He frequently sought her input on policy decisions, valuing her perspective as someone who had experienced firsthand the challenges faced by frontline workers. Together, they introduced initiatives aimed at supporting employees' mental health, including counseling services and flexible scheduling options. These efforts earned the resort recognition as a leader in ethical business practices, attracting top talent and loyal customers alike. Despite her growing fame, Maya never lost sight of her roots. She continued sending money home to her family, ensuring her siblings could pursue their education without financial strain. Her parents beamed with pride whenever they spoke about her achievements, marveling at how their quiet, hard-working daughter had become a beacon of hope for so many. "You've made us proud beyond words," her mother told her during a phone call. "But remember, true success isn't measured by accolades, it's measured by the lives you touch." One evening, as Maya sat on the beach near the resort, watching the waves crash against the shore, she reflected on how much her life had changed. From enduring insults in silence to inspiring global conversations about equality, she had come a long way. Yet, she knew the journey wasn't hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had stood beside her, cheered for her, or simply believed in her when she doubted herself. A soft breeze carried the sound of laughter from nearby tables, where guests enjoyed dinner under twinkling fairy lights. Maya smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the present moment. She thought about the countless individuals whose stories had intersected with hers: Maria, who had offered unwavering support; Mr. Patel, who had risked his reputation to protect his staff; and even Eleanor, whose actions had inadvertently ignited a movement. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Maya whispered a silent promise to herself: "This is just the beginning." She knew there was still work to be done, more battles to fight, more voices to amplify, but she also knew she wasn't alone. With every step forward, she carried the hopes and dreams of those who had entrusted her with their stories. And, in doing so, she proved that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the willingness to act despite it.